Michael Palelli joins me now. Professor, Dr. Palelli, your case is similar to my own here in Pennsylvania. Full disclosure on that. We both get asked the question, hey, you can vote in a primary, just join a party. What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is it violates the core purpose and meaning of the First Amendment, that one's political beliefs are part of a person's core identity. In fact, the Supreme Court said you can't fire a worker who works for the government if you're a boss just because they belong to the opposite party. The court itself recognized that goes to the heart of our country, that there's the right in the United States to belong to a political party or not to belong to a political party. And if that's true for government employment, it certainly should be true for voting.
And in lay terms, is that the essence of your constitutional argument as to why closed primaries need to be opened?
They need to be opened, right, because they put voters, independent voters, in an impossible position. You either have to betray your convictions by saying on your registration in Florida that you belong to a party when you really don't. But on the other hand, if you don't do that, you're not going to affect any election, because more and more in the United States, the two parties have divided up the country like a big turkey. They've gerrymandered the legislative districts so that Republicans, when they can, will include voters who are likely to vote for Republican, and Democrats do the same. So the result is our general elections mean less and less. So an independent voter who can't vote in a primary, in effect, has no real force. He or she is a second-class citizen.
To which I would add, 43% of the country self-identify as independent, not as an R or as a D. And to your point, David Wasserman from the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter was a guest within the last 3 weeks. And I said to him, David, of 435 congressional districts in the midterm, how many are preordained based on which side of the aisle wins? And he said probably, 400 of them. So what you and I are both saying is by the time an independent shows up, it's a foregone conclusion. They really don't have a say in the outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so
that's true.
But we lost. But I say we because I was rooting for you. The Supreme Court didn't take your case. I mean, they take very, very few. So what then, Professor, is the solution?
The solution is to try to affect change, either through the legislature, which is unlikely because both parties, it's interesting, both parties accuse each other of the worst possible things. But when it comes to preventing independent voters from voting in primaries, they're pretty much in agreement with some exceptions. So what we have to do, if we can't get legislative change, we have to go to the courts. That's our only hope.
I'm optimistic that there'll be pressure brought to bear on state legislatures in those closed primary states, different gradations of closed primaries. But I think Pennsylvania, I think Florida, I think New York as being pure closed primary states. My audience has heard it from me in the past, but the chief reason that I want those primaries open is to try and whittle down the influence of the extremists among us. Anyway, sorry you didn't have a better outcome, but I thought it was all the more important to shine a spotlight on your effort. So thank you, Professor.